He fell, but he always got back up, blow after blow, sweat and blood pouring down his spine, and still, it seemed there was something inside him that never gave up. What was the secret to Muhammad Ali's almost superhuman endurance? Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer, he was a phenomenon who transcended the ring, transforming pain into spectacle, endurance into poetry, weakness into strength. While many fighters crumbled after a few rounds, Ali seemed to possess an invisible engine, a stamina that defied logic, and a mind that refused to accept defeat. But this gift didn't emerge from nowhere. Behind his legendary resilience lay closely guarded secrets, hidden routines, brutal training, psychological strategies, and a mindset built on pain and resilience. In this video, we'll explore every layer of this fortress called Muhammad Ali, from the workouts that went beyond what was bearable to the moments when his mind screamed louder than his body. We'll feel the weight of his steps, the muffled sound of his breathing in the empty gym hallways, the anguish of late nights when he wondered if he could last another round. And above all, we'll understand how this man managed to turn the impossible into routine, how he withstood not only the punches of his rivals, but also life's invisible blows, which are often the cruelest. What you'll see next isn't just about muscles, sweat, or discipline. It's about a spirit that refused to be broken, a journey that shows that endurance isn't just about enduring, but knowing how to get back up when your whole body is screaming to fall. Prepare to enter the mind and heart of Muhammad Ali. The secrets of his endurance are about to be revealed. Then they go far beyond the ring. That it was dawn in Louisville. While the city slept, Muhammad Ali was already awake. There was no luxury or comfort in that moment, just the metallic sound of the punching bag chains swinging in the dark gym. Young Cassius Clay, still at the beginning of his journey, already understood that to be different. He had to endure what others couldn't. 100 sit-ups are nothing. Do 100 more after it hurts, he repeated to himself, sweating, lying on the wooden floor, the nearly burned-out light bulbs illuminating his gleaming body. Ali wasn't just training muscles, he was training his mind to not give up. From an early age, he learned that endurance isn't born of comfort. He would run until his knees burned, until his lungs felt like they were going to explode. But when everyone stopped, Ali would run one more lap. It was in that moment that he made a difference. The secret to his endurance lay in the habit of pushing himself to the limit every day, even when no one was watching, even when there was no applause. With each punch of the sandbag, he not only strengthened his arms but also trained his brain to endure pain, to find pleasure in sacrifice. In his routine, Ali allowed no shortcuts. He trained in the cold, in the sweltering heat, hungry and sleepy. If I can endure this now, I can endure anything in the ring, he muttered between labored breaths, almost like a prayer. He believed that every drop of sweat he shed before a fight was a drop of blood saved during the war. What many considered exaggeration, for him, was minimal preparation. Sparring partners, accustomed to training with dozens of athletes, remembered Ali never gave up. If training called for 10 rounds, he wanted 12. If his body said enough, he responded with a faster straight punch, a sharper jab. It was as if there was a flame within him that refused to go out. This obsession was the invisible foundation of his legendary endurance. It wasn't just biology or genetics. It was the daily repetition of voluntary suffering, and there was an almost secret detail in his training. Ali didn't count his reps from the beginning. He only started counting when the pain set in. For him, previous numbers were meaningless, because it was through pain that the body truly began to evolve. This philosophy, simple and brutal, shaped his body to withstand blows that would break ordinary men. It wasn't just strength, it was conditioning to live beyond pain. While many saw only the glitter of the fights broadcast to millions, few knew this silent ritual of self-improvement, the sweat dripping, the echo of punches on the bag, the rapid breathing filling the empty room. There he was alone, but with each training session, he built the invisible shield that would make him appear indestructible in front of the cameras. At the end of each dawn, exhausted Ali would stare into the fogged-up mirror and whisper, "You're not the greatest yet, but you're on your way." This phrase, repeated silently, was a reminder that resilience isn't achieved in a day, but is built through 1,000 invisible battles, the ones no one applauds. And so it was, repeating pain like a mantra, that Ali began to create a body that could endure more than it should. A body that seemed to know no human limits. But true strength was not yet confined to the physical. What came next would prove that Ali's mind was even more powerful than his fists, because in the ring, muscles may fail, but the mind that refuses to break never falls. Muhammad Ali knew the body had limits. Muscles fatigue, bones ache, blood drains, but there was one place no punches could reach, the mind. It was there that he became unbeatable. From a young age, he learned that a fight wasn't just physical, but primarily mental. When he stepped into the ring, Ali faced not only a flesh-and-blood opponent, but also the shadow of doubt that whispered within him, "You can't do this." And every time, he answered, "I can." There, he turned words into weapons. His famous trash talk wasn't just a provocation for the audience, but a psychological exercise. While telling his rivals they wouldn't make it past the 5th round, he kept telling himself he was invincible. It was a way to reprogram his mind, to put his psyche in command, even when his body was ready to give up. His rhyming verses, his sharp sentences, his almost arrogant confidence were, in effect, a wall built against fear. But the deepest secret to his mental toughness lay in how he dealt with pain. For many, pain is a warning sign, a limit to be respected. For Ali, pain was an illusion, an invisible adversary he needed to defeat before he could even defeat the man in front of him. He used to say, "I don't start counting my sit-ups until they hurt, because that's when it really starts." This philosophy wasn't just about physical training. It was the translation of his belief about life. It's only worth it when it hurts. Behind the scenes of his toughest fights, trainers recounted how Ali used his mind to trick his body. Even exhausted, he would smile at his opponent. Even bleeding, he kept his gaze steady, as if to say, "You can beat me, but you'll never break me." This ability to endure the unbearable came from something that transcended the physical. It was self-belief, pride, and a refusal to surrender. And here's an important detail. Ali never fought just for himself. He carried on his shoulders the expectations of millions, the voice of a people who saw him as a symbol. This responsibility fueled his resilience. When his legs trembled, he remembered the black children who saw him as an inspiration, the poor families who found him a hero. This connection gave him strength when all else seemed to fail. It was more than boxing, it was a legacy in the making. If you've made it this far, it's because you feel the energy of this story. And I want to ask you something. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment on what inspires you most about Muhammad Ali. This helps bring this message to more people and keeps the flame of stories like this alive. Now, let's move on. Because what follows will show you that Ali's mind was a battlefield as cruel as any ring. Because before defeating his rivals, Ali learned to defeat the most dangerous enemy of all, himself. Kinshasa, Zaire, 1974. The humid night hung heavy in the air. Drums echoed outside the stadium, and inside the ring, Muhammad Ali faced George Foreman, the most feared man in boxing. Foreman wasn't just a world champion, he was a muscle monster known for knocking out opponents like puppets. Many believed Ali wouldn't stand a chance, but he carried within him a secret that would make that fight one of the greatest in history: endurance. From the first round, Foreman unleashed devastating blows. His punches shook Ali's body like each impact echoed throughout the packed stadium, and many spectators closed their eyes, expecting to see Ali fall. But, contrary to expectations, he didn't crumble. Leaning against the ropes, he smiled, taunted, and whispered sharp words in Foreman's ear. "Is that all you've got? You're going to have to hit harder than that." It was the famous rope-a-dope, a strategy no one understood at the time. Ali let his opponent expend all his energy, absorbing blows that would have destroyed anyone else. But he wasn't just holding out, he was winning a psychological war. Every punch he received was transformed into ammunition against Foreman himself. The audience couldn't tell if Ali was resisting or about to be knocked out. His body seemed to teeter on the edge, but his mind remained intact, firm, indestructible. In the midst of the fight, the pain was unbearable. Sweat ran down his eyes, his chest burned with every breath, and his legs threatened to give way. But Ali showed no weakness. "It's not over yet," he repeated silently. For him, every second endured was a victory. His opponent was exhausted, while he fed on his own suffering. It was as if the pain were fueled on. In the 8th round, the strategy revealed itself. Foreman, exhausted, no longer had the same strength, and Ali, who seemed about to collapse, exploded with a devastating sequence. With a straight right to the jaw, he dropped the giant. Foreman collapsed to the ground in disbelief. The stadium erupted. Ali had proven to the world that his resilience wasn't just physical, but also intelligence, courage, and faith. This moment immortalized the essence of Muhammad Ali, a man who endured the impossible until he turned weakness into victory. He showed the world that it wasn't necessary to be the strongest, but the one who could endure the most. That endurance wasn't just about absorbing blows, but waiting for the right moment to turn the tide. Because when everyone thinks you're finished, that's exactly when the chance to become eternal arises. Muhammad Ali realized his toughest fight had no judges, bells, or audiences. The fight began upon waking, when his hands stubbornly trembled before the first glass of water. The diagnosis was an invisible crusader, Parkinson's disease. There was no tape to study his opponent, no high guard to counter his own body's attacks. The man who danced lightly on tiptoe began to negotiate each step. Tying his shoelaces became a patience exercise. Holding a pen, an entire round. In the mirror he saw a slower reflection, but not a defeated one. He breathed deeply, marking time as if in the ring, counting silently. 1, 2, 3. Each morning was a bell, each gesture, a strategy. He decided he would not run from the pain. He would walk with it, steadfastly, until he learned to respect the rhythm of someone who never knew how to give up. There were foggy days and others with clear skies. In all of them, Ollie sought one thing: to keep going. Between sips of coffee, he told the shade that it was still possible to fight. But to face the faceless enemy, Ollie designed a routine like someone preparing for a training camp. Early physical therapy, coordination exercises, a voice trained in short phrases, reading aloud to defy the tremor that stole syllables. He divided the battle into micro-victories: getting up from a chair without support, walking a block without stopping, eating without spilling. Training ceased to be an explosion and became silent resistance. The dance slowed, but the beat remained. He smiled when his hand obeyed for 5 seconds. He celebrated when his leg didn't lock on the first step. He transformed fear into a schedule, discipline into body language. Beside him, family and friends followed the rhythm, respecting pauses, celebrating small achievements. Between sessions, Ali would repeat softly that the champion hadn't disappeared. He'd simply learned a new way to fight. Humor became a shield against shame. Faith, once a shout, became a whisper. He counted breaths and nights slept, away from the cameras. Atlanta, 1996. The entire stadium held its breath. The lights dimmed, the camera zoomed in, and a man with trembling hands emerged with the torch. It was Ollie. No announcer could stem the wave of silence that turned to tears. Every tremor was seen, every hesitation felt, and yet, the flame rose. He raised it as if raising his own history, offering the world a new meaning for courage. In that moment, the champion who spoke loudly let his body speak for him. The flame rose slowly, as if learning to walk. The stadium erupted in applause, but Ollie remained serene, eyes steady, breathing shallowly, master of a tempo no one else controlled. On TV, the scene played out across the planet. In the theaters, thousands understood that winning is different from resisting. Ollie showed that dignity also trembles, but does not fall. The ring was now the world, and he accepted the fight. The flame in his eyes said, "It's not about speed, it's about courage." The world understood that greatness can flicker and remain. The illness tried to silence him, but Ollie found a new tone for his own voice. Instead of denying the tremor, he transformed it into a teacher. He learned to ask for help without shame, to accept the new time his body imposed, and to find beauty in overcoming slowly. He spoke to young people in schools, visited hospital beds, shook hands carefully, returning to the world the kindness that glory doesn't always allow. When fatigue weighed heavily, he remembered the boy from Louisville who ran before the sun, and kept going. The champion understood that losing speed wasn't losing his destination, it was choosing a different route. Each fall became a rehearsal for a comeback, each silence, a prayer. Deep within, he held a simple certainty: there are struggles that don't require applause, they require patience. His legacy then grew beyond the ropes, to teach that strength is not the opposite of fragility. Sometimes, it's precisely the courage to embrace it, and if they ask the secret, keep going, even trembling. The flame can waver and still remain. There was no magic in Muhammad Ali. There was method. The ultimate secret was a sum of small decisions repeated until they became instinct. Breathing, saving each step, releasing the shoulder so as not to lock up, accepting pain as a warning that this was where the body truly began. He stored energy like someone storing oxygen at the bottom of the sea. A light jab, a clinch at the right time, a look that confuses, silence when convenient. Rhythm was everything. If his rival accelerated, he slowed down internally. If the blow came hard, he gave an inch to return 10. It seemed simple, but it never was. The science Ollie practiced in the ring was the art of spending little when everyone else was spending a lot, of listening to his own breathing like a metronome and obeying that rhythm until the other man tired first. To resist, for him, was to choose to continue with elegance. When his heart beat high, Ollie slowed his mind. He counted steps, counted seconds. Each number became a step toward regaining control. He called it courage, but it was self-injure. Ollie built a tripod, a body that saves, a mind that commands, a purpose that pushes. In training, he climbed invisible steps, stretching until his jaw relaxed, ice on his shins, a rope until his breath became music, a slow shadow to correct angles, a bag just heavy enough to maintain speed, then silence. He went to bed early, like someone closing the theater curtain. The food was simple, as was his ego. Before each session, he visualized. He entered the ring with his eyes closed, felt the ropes, listened to the referee, perceived the smell of leather and sweat. He won there first, and there was another key, an inner creed. I can suffer one more minute, he repeated softly. 1 minute becomes 2, 2 becomes a round. When fear came in the early hours, Ali would say, "Sit and wait." He would laugh at the pain to take away its authority. In the hallway, he counted steps until calm returned. In the end, phrase, "one more time," invisible ritual that sustained what the world applauded. Okay, what Ollie left behind wasn't just a memory of victories. It was an invisible manual for surviving difficult days. Breathe when everything is tight. Expend less energy than the situation demands. Count to 10 before despair grows. Divide the impossible into bearable minutes. Practice the basics until they become reflexes. In the ring of life, this math saves. 1 step back makes room for 2 forward. Silence preserves energy for the right word. A smile deceives fear long enough to get through the night. Those who learn this rhythm understand that resistance isn't being made of stone. It's being water that bends, insists, digs. A long round requires short breaths and a small goal. A conflict demands a low voice and a watchful eye. A loss demands time and an embrace. Ali lends us the map, an economical body, an orderly mind, a burning purpose. If the blow comes hard, giving an inch isn't an escape, it's a strategy. And when the pain speaks loudly, respond with work, 1 round at a time, until the bell rings. In the end, Ollie's code fits into a simple image. Him in the corner, eyes closed, hand resting on the rope, listening to his own heart until the world reaches the right volume. There's no magic there. There's a choice. Resisting is delaying despair, organizing pain, educating the body, giving greater meaning to fatigue. He taught us that the fight ends long before the last punch. It ends when you decide 1 more minute is possible. It was like that. A boy in Louisville, a champion in Kinshasa, a torchbearer in Atlanta. The same man, different rhythms, the same creed. Float when you need to save, steady when you need to hold on, stab when the moment opens. This is the architecture of courage, time, technique, and stubborn faith. If tomorrow gets tough, remember the rhythm, breathe slowly, count steps, conserve energy. When everything calls for haste, maintain the rhythm that sustains you. If you fall, get up. 1, 2, 3. It's not about always winning. It's about not breaking. The flame can tremble and still shine. May each round find its code.